Hello everyone. The topic for discussion today is perfect negotiation, buyer's reaction, technical grounds, and financial negotiation. In a specific procurement condition, a buyer is one of the key aspects in terms of finalization of contracts, both technically and financially, between the purchase department, the supplier, and the end user. Now, who is a buyer? A buyer is a person who actually buys on behalf of the end user. Buyer actually sees both financially and technically competent quotes from different suppliers and acts on behalf of the end user and gives the end user the full confidence that the items or the procurement will be done with 100% efficiency in terms of technical and financial compatibility. So we have a situation where the procurement department has specific buyers who has specific roles and reports to the procurement manager, and they consist a tabular form of creation where each specific activities are monitored and controlled in a given environment. The basic role of a buyer is to negotiate both technically and financially. Now, people may say that a buyer needs to be an engineer or a competent person who can actually handle both technical and financial aspects. So we can term him as a techno-commercial guy. But specific corporate environments have specific roles. For example, a buyer who is not technically competent is financially competent, and that corporate environment just needs financial stability or the financial quote of the supplier based on the end user's approval on technical grounds. Now we have a specific end user department, we have a separate buyer's department, and both these have corresponding activities. Negotiation by a buyer in terms of financial aspects is very important. Similarly, end users' reaction to the technical approvals are also very important. Now, financial approvals are based on many conditions. The quotation submitted by the supplier should be 100% transparent. If you have a quotation committee who opens the quotation regularly on behalf of a buyer, specific terms and conditions should be laid down, which is 100% transparent and legally compatible in all aspects. Now, the downstream, which is the technical approval, needs to be studied very deeply. A technical approval is given by an engineer or the end user department, where he studies carefully each specification and matches his exact requirement. Now, if somebody says, I don't want to see the site and I want to just give a simple code, I would say it's foolishness. Now, what are the technical grounds on which the end user approves? The technical grounds are based on the exact requirement of the site. The end user may represent a group of person or a specific department. The department has requirements based on the current and the forecasted plans. If the forecasted plans are over a period of time, the end user may go for partial orders or partial requirements and may force the purchase department to make multiple orders to store so that the delivery can be scheduled accordingly to the plan. Now, the most important and the serious subject which I wanted to cover today is the communication between the end user and the buyer. The communication is the key aspect which is to be maintained at the highest priority, because if you are ordering an item which is worth millions and the end user is rejecting it, it becomes a full loop of errors between the supplier, the end user, and the purchase department. Now, the supplier sometimes can be blamed sometimes the supplier can't be blamed because the communication between the station or between the end user department and the purchase department does not reflect. So what are the key factors which has to be implemented in a corporate environment in order to avoid discrepancies in technical and financial clarifications? Number one, the end user must be exactly knowing his requirement, and he must be able to see the supplier's technical clarifications at all levels and at all revisions. He must be able to sit with the supplier when he is doing a factory visit or a site visit, and he must be able to communicate with the supplier that this is my requirement. And the supplier in turn should give a suggestion that this is the best practice or this is the best product which is suitable for the area. Now, the difference of opinion may come, but a final agreement is what is successful. The final agreement is based on different opinions from both supplier and the end user. Finally, the end user approves and agrees based on the fact that the site is the core thing which has to be focused on, and he needs the best product and services to be available on the site at all times. Number two, the purchase department must be streamlined in such a manner where the buyers or the team of buyers or the procurement specialist or the procurement executives must be in full 100% communication with the end user department, and they must support the end user and their requirement and should reflect the good practices of what the end user department is actually communicating to them in different modes of communication. The purchase department must be on such a level where they actually see beyond the financial codes, because they must be not in a situation where financial codes must be ruling all the times, because the product quality, the product efficiency is the topmost level to be considered while finalizing a quote, even though a specific supplier is costing much higher than the cheapest one, because we see efficiency and quality as uncompromised, and it cannot be compromised even though financially it may differ from one supplier to another supplier. Number three, a transfer of knowledge is very important. The purchase department must involve with the end user department. They must visit the site, they must know the actual need of the field, and they should know the capability of what the technical guys are up to. The technical guys may be sitting in a complex situation where they are not able to see beyond the technical aspects because they cannot agree every time on the financial grounds. For example, a specific supplier may cost 50,000 dirhams more than a specific supplier, but the specific supplier which is higher is having the best product in the industry, and the buyer just sees the financial code. But at this time, the communication which is between the buyer and the end user department should be in such a way that the end user and the buyer must both come together and sit and study and finally agree on that efficiency and quality is what matters and not financial every time. Last but not the least, we must take the best practices and advices from the best in the industries. The specific suppliers who are actually streamlined to supply category of items should be called in, and many round of discussions must happen with the suppliers to enable just one thing. Knowledge is very important. A buyer may lack knowledge, a technical guy may lack knowledge, but the suppliers and the technical team of the suppliers, they know what's best in the industry. So they would suggest the highest quality. They would give you multiple options, but again, you have to sit with them and understand that this is the best applicable thing in the industry right now, and you should be able to adapt it. So, to conclude, Going with the best practices in the industry, a procurement department must streamline its activities and come in line with the technical grounds as well as financial grounds. They must both collaborate and correlate with each other before finalizing a tender, before finalizing a specific request for quotation or a specific purchase order. Any amount of purchase order, any big amount of purchase order, it doesn't matter. Whatever matters is the quality of products which comes in from the third party, which is the supplier, or a subcontractor, or a contractor, or even a consultant. It is the quality of the product which comes in. It is the quality of the product which is used in the end user's field or the requirement. It is the satisfaction of the end user finally, which matters. Because always buyers or the procurement department, they sit to service the end user department, because the end user department is using the items and consuming it. Therefore, it is very important to understand the basics of procurement before going in deeps of procurement. In the coming classes, I shall guide you the different aspects of procurement and supply chain. We shall discuss together different levels of approaches and terms in detail. For now, I'm signing off. This is Jason Abraham. Thank you.